Let's talk everything Mosdos. If you are new here, I am Nikki. I'm a homeschool mom of an only child in 3rd grade. But I want to talk to you all about Mosdos today. If you've not heard of this company, please stick around. I'm going to tell you how we use this, how it's been going this year, and how that I kind of plan it out and how I'm going to maybe incorporate this next year. And then I'll do a really quick flip through for you. So stick around, the flip through will be at the very end, but let's just get started. All right, all about Mosdos. I say Mosdos, but I think it's Mosdos. So we're just gonna go with Mosdos. Mosdos Press Literature is a reading literature curriculum, and I have truly fallen in love with this gem. It has been amazing. The stories in this they're so rich. They're so rich. The quality, the content, it's all just really great. The prose are, it is beautiful, it is colorful, the stories are all in color and illustrated wonderfully. It keeps, the visual is definitely there per story. They're all different. So there's all different types of ways that they incorporate the illustration. You get 2 workbooks, textbooks for the year. So you get 2 textbooks within here, and you get 1 workbook for the student. And that has textbook 1 on this side and textbook 2 on the other. So it's Sunflower and Daisy. We are still on the sunflower portion of it. When we first started using this, we didn't really utilize the student workbook because I didn't need those components, because the teacher's manual, which I have right here, you get 2 ginormous teacher's manuals. This is just for the 1 textbook, the sunflower textbook. The amount of information given to you to teach these stories and is amazing. It's amazing. Now, this is not a homeschool company. I'm pretty sure these are used in public school setting. So it is not set up for a homeschooler. You kind of have to jive and figure out here what you're going to do on your own, as it does not have like day 1, do this, day 2, do that. It does list out, I don't know what this is. I guess this is a scope and sequence. It does have the scope and sequence, but honestly, it's kind of just like you're on your own to figure out a schedule. So that has been a kind of a big struggle for me, just in the sense that I'm used to having the schedule laid out, but it's not a game changer. As of right now, we've only been utilizing this once a week. So whatever story there is, we read that entire story, and then she is to do the workbook pages. Now, we also pull the vocabulary from this as well, and she gets a copy. So let me back up. So I used to do this with her on Tuesdays, but then I got a job outside of the home. So I have kind of handed this off to her for her to complete on her own, because I know she's more than capable of doing this. But I noticed that I'm losing out on a lot of the gem of this teacher's manual, because this teacher's manual it has so much, and I feel like if I'm just letting her read the story and do the workbook, I'm not instilling some of that richness of part of the story, because they have things written out to discuss as part of the story and to add on to what she's already reading. So that part is the part we're missing as of right now. So what I'm going to do, and probably will do maybe once we get more into a routine and rhythm, since I just started this job a few weeks ago, is that I'm going to break this up. She's still going to read the story and I'm going to read it as well, but I'm going to read it separately just so that I know what she read. And then we can go day by day and kind of split it up over the 4 days and break the workbook down as well. Because in the workbook, there's like at least 6 pages, I think, that goes with each story. And so we can kind of do like 1 page here, 2 pages here, 2 pages here, cross out whatever ones I don't want her to do. And there's discussion questions, there's comprehension questions, there's vocabulary, there's skills, and there's so much to this curriculum, and I absolutely love it. So let's talk a little bit about how it's laid out. So the way we do this is there are stories, and then there are also poems tossed in there as well. There's what they call a lesson in literature, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So it's kind of what they do before a story is in the book. It's introduced as this little 2-page short story. So this lesson in literature will have what we're focusing on. Characters, for instance. What are the characters? Then it's going to have some things on what characters are. And then it's going to have think about it questions. What they're going to think about as they read this little 2-page story. In my book, so I don't have that opened up to that one. So let me quickly get it on the right one, which was like, here we go. So what I have is in my teacher's manual, I have this same 2-page story, the same thing the student sees in the textbook, but I get a lot of information here to work with. So we are going over what the characters are, getting started. It has what this story is about. And then it's kind of prepping us for the next story. Yeah, so it's really preparing us for a cane in her hand. But the lesson in literature is kind of like, it's prepping them because it's wanting them to really focus on the character so that we can also then focus the character on to the next story. And then we have the vocab. So what I do is I take a picture of this and I print it out because I don't want to write it. That's just me. And then it's just the vocabulary, and then I give this to her, and then she has a notebook specific for vocabulary, and she adds this into the Mosdos section of whatever story that we're doing, and then this is the vocabulary. So 1 week we will focus on the lesson in literature. So she will only have to read this 2-page thing on her own, and then there's no workbook pages that are associated with the lessons and literature. And so we'll talk about it. We'll go through some of these questions, and then the following week she'll start on the next story, which in the textbook is A Cane in Her Hand. So this story was great. It was about obviously a child who, couldn't see. But it had, it's going on more on characters. And so it's kind of giving you, like it says, the blueprint for reading that. So she would then go ahead and read this entire story. We used to kind of stagger it where I would read a page, she would read a page. But honestly, she loves reading, so she just ended up reading it. Now, at the end of the story, there's always the poem. Now, it might not go with it, but there's always a poem that's involved after the story. Then it talks about the book. There's a review. There's questions for review. There's a focus section, which has more questions. And then they have some type of creative writing project at the bottom. I don't necessarily do the creative writing projects, but the option is there. And then we also have first impressions questions as well. And then you're done. And then you have the lesson in literature again. Now it's prepping you into setting. So we're going to have a story all about the type of setting in the book and things to think about. And then before we get into this story, it's talking all about setting again. So now she's kind of aware what setting is. And then she'll be focusing on that in the next story, which this one was Boomtown. So I love that it has these little vocabulary word banks as you read, so that if there's a word part of the vocabulary and they didn't know it, it is listed throughout as you read, which is super, super, super convenient. I absolutely love this curriculum, and spoiler alert, I have already bought the next level. I just have to figure out how I'm going to utilize this next year, or once we get into more of a routine this year on my working day, as Tuesday is really the only day I can squeeze this into our schedule. This is simply reading. You are not going to get language arts out of this. You are not going to get really grammar out of this. This is just a component to add into or part of your language arts. So this is simply reading. In this book alone, you're talking about all about the story. So it's going to have your setting and your plot and your characters, and that is their like main focus for this first textbook. I think it's in the other one too, but let me just double check. Yeah. So we're going to talk about what is a story, what is a plot, what are characters, setting, theme. Unit 2, internal conflict, external conflict. What is sequence? How is setting for a drama different? What's the main idea? What are character traits, point of view, relationships in a story, cause and effect, biography. So that is in this book alone. We do have ended up purchasing these on Facebook Marketplace. I did get this from somebody who I didn't realize it said that there was a manufacturing issue. So the book is fine. I just have to rip the pages apart because there was a print issue with this book. So this second book goes into the next unit, and then we're talking about more of settings. But then we're getting into what are images, descriptive text, historical fiction, creating a setting. What is an author's purpose? What is a stated theme, implied theme, drawing conclusions, compare and contrast, the purpose of biographies, reality and fantasy, and then using dialogue. So again, this is still the same beautiful book, which we have not even got to because like I said, we've only been doing one story a week, and I don't know if that's how it should be laid out. I just know they give you a scope and sequence, and so I took this as we're just going to take our time. I'm in no hurry or rush. So in the teacher's manual, it does explain to you everything that you need. I mean, for the teacher, we have so much here, and it really explains. So like lessons in literature. The pre-curriculum begins with the lessons in literature, which is kind of what I was describing to you. Lessons in literature introduce the literary component or language arts skill that will be taught with the literary work that follows. These lessons are good teaching tools. The lesson in literature are short to give your students initial practice with the target component or skill. Then we have vocabulary. Like I talked about, the word banks. We have the getting started, which is to begin a dialogue with your student regarding what they're about to read. And it will have some exercises to hone in their listening skills. And then we have a synopsis and kind of things as well. Then there's that blueprint for reading, which I showed you as well. It is the, it kind of elaborates and opens the discussion of the themes. And then they have the guiding of the reading. There are definitely analytical and literal questions that the teacher can ask you as you're reading. My child does not like me to stop while we're reading and discuss that. She wants everything to come at the end, and then it does talk about the literary components, how to tie in the poems. It does have a brief explanatory statement about the poem. And then again, you have the workbook as well, which is included. So many good nuggets here. If you've not heard of it, I'm the only con, okay, two cons. I wish they had a schedule for me. I wish they laid it out that way so I knew how to work through the story and what to separate, but it's not a game changer con because I could still figure that out. And then the other con is price. This is a pricey set. You can look on eBay, you can look on, Christian Books has this curriculum. It's not typically on sale or anything like that. You can look on Facebook Marketplace to see if there's any used copies, which is how I got our current set. I think I ended up purchasing the manual, but it was so long ago, I don't remember. But I just wanted to kind of give you an idea about price. This is a company, I haven't reached out to them or anything like that, but they have a website as well that I'm pretty sure you can get their curriculum on. Student edition for $62, which is going to include your textbook and the workbook. Or they have other options. The teacher's manual is what is going to get you. That is $80. But let me tell you, this book has so much in it, and this is just for this textbook. This is just for this textbook. There's a whole other one the same size for the other textbook because there's so much in here that's so good. And then there's like some kind of test master, which I did not purchase the test because we use the workbook and I don't feel there needs to be test. So it has vocabulary tests, or it has for each section, there's unit tests, including comprehension. So you can purchase that. It looks like you can get a digital copy, which is nice, but this, again, for the test, it's $70. So this, like I said, it's very pricey, but to me, it's very much worth it. I have never been as impressed with a reading curriculum and the rich stories in here and how everything ties together. It's just a little bit that's going to get you thinking. You're going to think how to plan it, how to lay it out. You're going to have to find your ebb and flow of how to use this curriculum because the stories itself can be a little long. I'm not saying we're going to be down here for hours. It's not a chapter book kind of thing. But let's just see. It ends on page 114. So it's about roughly 15 pages. Now, they're not all like super full pages. You may have pages with a lot of like beautiful illustrations on them and like shorter boxes, or one that doesn't even have writing on a page, it's just the illustration. So they're not horrible, it's really not, and I feel like it doesn't take us a long time to do it, but you just got to plan for it. You do get a scope and sequence in the book, like I mentioned, but this is going to have like a common core. It's going to have what the story is about, the curriculum, the selection, and then like all the workbook vocab, what pages everything is on and stuff like that. So it's there. I just wish it would have had a little bit more of an extra step in there for me. But again, it's not a game changer. I'm going to show you a really, really quick flip through, even though I kind of held up the pages, but I'm not sure how well you were able to see it. I will have another video coming out on the next level. I will. But I'm kind of waiting because I want more of a clearer picture of how I'm going to utilize it in our upcoming school year. So once I do that and I start uploading all my curriculum videos for the next school year, you're going to see the 4th grade level. Spoiler alert. So let me turn this camera around. Let me show you Mosdos. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I will be happy to show you anything specific that you may need. You can also follow me over on Instagram at Nickie_blessed_homeschool_mess. And message me there as well if you have any questions. And of course, subscribe, follow, all of that. And I'll see you in my next video. Let's get into the flip through. You know, boxes are there. This is the workbook. So for every story, so for instance, I just showed you the jar of Tasari. This was before we decided to utilize the workbook, but it will have the jar of Tasai, whatever. It'll have a vocabulary, 2 activities. And then it kind of moves into about the story. Then there's some kind of like language arts activity, which, you know, we never did. So this is talking about like narrative elements. Read the paragraphs, answer the question kind of thing. And then you're going to circle what the right one is. I cross out things that I didn't want to have her do, but we didn't end up doing it anyway. This is a graphic organizers. And then we moved on to the white sombrero. Again, vocab is laid out like that. And then we have about the story, a language arts activity. I know I said there's no like language arts component really in here. Like you cannot use this alone for your language arts component unless you are willing to pull sources and bring them in to go along with it. And then we have more graphic organizers. So that's how it's laid out. It's pretty much the same. And then when you're into the second textbook, you just flip this over. It's in a different color and it's probably laid out the exact same way. There is a vocabulary activity for both pages, and then same way, more about the story, the language arts activity, and then the graphic organizers. So it's literally the same thing. It's just for the second textbook. So you can see story is laid out. So we have the same thing the child saw, your units and what's in there. And then this is what I was kind of reading to you already for the teacher and explaining how all the sections are done. And then we go into the scope and sequence, which I kind of discussed as well. So I'm just going to skip through that and go all the way to the first story. So as you could see, we start our lesson in literature. It has the vocabulary for the story, which is the jar of Tesai. It has your skills, your learning strategies, your common core, and your genre, which is really nice to add in the genre aspect. And then in the lesson in literature, it's going to have some, the answers to what is a story, and like the think about it one. So like, how do the boys discover the silver urn? He tripped and fell over it. And then it's going to have this getting started. Now, if it helps you to grab a highlighter and like highlight the parts that you want to read, and you don't have to do it all, because again, this is literally for a classroom setting, so you can kind of pick and choose what you want. This has the summary of the book that we're going to be reading for the Jar of Tesai, not book, story, whatever, it's in here. This goes into a non-story description, a story, a discussion that you can have, and then it's going to tell you these are the workbook page numbers and the answer keys as well. And then it goes into the story. So as you could see, there's so much here. We go into story elements, and there's, an intro that you can have a discussion for. There's the components talking about exposition and similes and characterizations. And then now you have the questions. We have literal questions, and then we have analytical questions. I love analytical questions, and I love that they're incorporated. And then as you read along, we have more of these questions and where to find them in the book. So they'll number them 4. Well, that's where you're going to discuss that particular question. And then we have more guided reading, literal, analytical. I'm sorry, these weren't the questions, these were the components. So when it says we're talking about sensory images, I can then go, and this is where they're going to see that sensory images component. We have more components on this side, and then we have more literal and analytical. So there's tons and tons and tons of nuggets and discussion type questions throughout the entire story. And I don't do half of these because, like I said, she'd rather me wait till the very end. So I just pick a handful. I know and will know if she's following along just based on that. And then more literary and questions. And then once you get towards the very end of a story, it's talking about the tie-in to the poem. And then there's some discussion questions that we can use about the poem. And then we have our final page, which is kind of like the little review. And this is about like what work did Tesai do secretly. So this is talking about the Jar of Tesai. And then there's like a little activity. There's that first impression we can ask. And then it kind of gives you how to handle the first impression topic, what to focus on, a little bit of review. And then there is that creating and writing, which is here, that you can have them do. So for instance, in this one, the governor gave Tesai a prize for doing a good deed. What do you think it was? Imagine that you're the governor and write a letter to Tesai that describes the prize and thank her for the brave deed. So there are just like an example of things you could give your student. And then again, we're back into that lesson in literature and focusing on a component, which is plot. So same thing, so much in here. I don't know if there's what's in the back. Oh, this is where the workbook answer guide is. So if you need the answers to your workbook, it is all what the vocabulary is. and so forth to all of the workbook answers. I mean, everyone knows what an answer key looks like. So yeah, I think there is some other pages back here though. Let me just, acknowledgements. Yep, so there's a glossary. That might be it actually. Yeah, and so there is all, so after every unit, they do have a wrap-up activity. And I believe there's multiple options you can pick from. Like this is activity 4, but this is an option for you to wrap up a whole unit on. I'm not sure if it's, so the other ones are here. They have activity 1, activity 2. I'm not sure where activity 3 went, but it's somewhere. I might have skipped a page here. Oh, here, the activity 3 was up here. So there's definitely 4 different project options that you can do, or you don't have to do it at all. It really just, that wraps up this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.